Hey folks, this is Zach Osterman with Inside Indiana. This is Inside Indiana Overtime. Sorry, I know the awkwardness of doing this thing solo. Alex is up in Ann Arbor tonight, but he's still got some driving to do, so I told him I'd take care of this from home so he didn't have to stay at the Chrysler Center too late. But obviously now it's very late here now too. It's 11:30 because I ran out to Cook Hall to cover the pep rally welcome thing, whatever. Nothing y'all probably don't know about Indiana. 72, Michigan 71, and obviously, a game that you could talk about a lot of different things, but it really came down to about, 52 seconds. At the end of the game, Glenn Robinson misses the first of two free throws, makes the second, and then Cody Zeller scores 6 points unanswered to win the game by one, and Michigan missed the front end of two one-and-ones, and what's interesting, ironic, whatever you want to say, whatever word or whatever adjective you want to use, the two Michigan players who missed the front ends of those two one-on-one opportunities were Tim Hardaway Jr. and Trey Burke, Michigan's two leading scorers, and probably really inarguably, I think, if not statistically, then in terms of experience and performance and sort of the way they've played this year for the Wolverines, the two guys you'd want at the line in those situations, and it didn't work out for them. But Indiana, they started out furiously. Jordan Hulse hit a couple threes, and then their offense just kind of went away. I mean, just went totally into neutral, and I think they fell down to 27-16, and then from there just kind of, they started getting Zeller more involved, and they really started, I think part of it was just that he started having success. I think he started the game 0 of 4 from the field, and then finished the first half 4 of 5 for 9 points, and as they started to get him involved, that got Jordan Morgan and Mitch McGary into foul trouble. And it really kind of gave Indiana an anchoring presence on offense that they were able to build around in the second half. And in that second half, Indiana outscores Michigan 42-38. They shot in the first half. They shot 35.1% from the floor. In the second half, 51.5%. For the game, they shoot 7 of 16 from behind the arc. They only shot 23 of 54 from inside the arc, so their 2-point shooting percentages weren't great, and actually they only had 17 second chance points off of 24 offensive rebounds. So it was a strange statistical night, because on one hand Indiana is missing a lot of layups. I think Tom Crean said later that he felt like they were rushing those layups in both halves, but then at the same time, kind of balancing that out by just getting so many extra looks, so many rebounds, and we've seen kind of this, we saw this formula play out against Indiana with Ohio State, with Minnesota, and tonight it was Indiana 53 rebounds to Michigan's 30. Indiana had 24 offensive rebounds. Michigan only had 18 defensive rebounds. And that really just, again, there was foul trouble in both halves from McGary, a little bit from Morgan. By the end of the game, Jordan Morgan, he wasn't not trying on defense, but he was playing very passively defensively, because he knew that he couldn't really afford to pick up a fourth foul. He knew that with McGary in foul trouble, he needed to be able to stay on the court for long stretches of time. And Indiana really took advantage of that. Zeller, 25 points and 10 boards. He had 16 of those 25 points in the second half alone. He shot 10 and 19 from the floor. He took 8 of Indiana's 9 free throws. That was a surprisingly low number. Again, maybe another strange statistic in this game. On one hand, Indiana can out-rebound Michigan to the tune of plus 23. On the other hand, for all of Michigan's perceived foul trouble, Indiana only shot 9 free throws, and they only made 5 of those. So it was not a vintage Indiana win, if you will. Again, you don't expect Indiana to be missing from that close to the basket as often as they were. And you also don't expect them to only go to the free throw line 9 times. And you certainly don't expect them to do those things on the road and in a place like Michigan and win. But, Indiana kind of flipped the script a little bit on Michigan. Trey Burke had to take 20 shots to score 20 points, and I think at this point, He's now 45 points on 45 shots for Indiana, which is kind of what Indiana coaches talked about and players with him in both their meetings this year, is he's not really a player that you can stop, but if you can slow him down, if you can make him inefficient, if you can make him have to use a lot of possessions and take a lot of shots, he was only 7 of 20 from the floor today. If you can get him to do that, then you're at least in a good position to, you're not letting him kind of affect the whole Michigan offense and the whole flow of the game when Michigan has the ball, because you're forcing him to waste more possessions than he's used to. He still had a magnificent night, 20 points, 4 assists, 4 turnovers, 3 steals. He played 36 minutes, which was a co-game high with Hardaway Jr. And also Cody Zeller also played 36 minutes. But, it looked like Michigan had figured out how to get to Indiana with a lot of sort of the angled drives, get to the baseline, collapse the baseline defense, and then kick it out for a 3. Indiana really struggled with help. I think at least one point, you can hear Jordan Hulls audibly, even on TV, saying, yelling at someone, "Don't overhelp," as I think it was Remy Abel left his man who got a corner 3, pretty wide open that he hit. I think that might have been Glenn Robinson III. But what it came down to, in the end, Indiana was +8 in points in the paint. Again, they were +6 in second chance points. They had 0 bench points in the first half, and they had 15 for the game. So they got a huge second half out of their bench. Will Sheehy and Jeremy Hollowell had 10 and 5 respectively. And then you keep coming back to the rebounding number. Indiana turned the ball over 14 times, but it felt like, and I think this is something when Tom Green has talked about rebounding and the importance of rebounding, I think this is a good illustration of it, is that even when you're not playing well, even when you're not shooting well, even when maybe you're turning the ball over a little, more than you should, when you are dominating the rebounding column, you can always control the game, because you're just generating so many extra possessions. I mean, if you think about it, 24 offensive rebounds totally cancels out 14 turnovers, because you're generating extra possessions for yourself that negate losing the possessions you lost when you turn the ball over. And again, it was not a perfect game for Indiana by any stretch of the imagination, but it was maybe, in some ways, this was maybe the game Indiana needed to see out of itself. Because people had questioned Indiana's physical toughness. They questioned, can you just go, if you're playing Indiana and you just go straight at them and you try to beat up Zeller and you try to beat up Watford and you try to beat up Oladipo and Farrell and Hulls, can you maybe get them to back down a little bit? And Michigan certainly tried that, and you got the feeling that, maybe bolstered in part by the rebounding numbers, as the game went on, Indiana kind of really just kept gaining confidence, and there was a stretch there late in the game where I think they had 2 or 3 just completely empty possessions, turnovers, some bad shot selection, and that was when Michigan built that 5-point lead going into the final minute. And it kind of looked like, the making plays and winning time, or winning plays, or whatever coach speak you want to use. It felt like Indiana had kind of wasted that, those moments. But, Michigan just collapsed at the line, and collapsed in the last 50 seconds of the game. And Indiana can certainly attest to how it feels to let a lead slip late. Maybe not at home, but they can tell you about it. And it looked, there were some similarities there. I mean, Cody Zeller was surprisingly open on that last Indiana possession. He kind of just did a screen and kind of roll out to space, just on like the left block extended, and nobody went with him. But, it was kind of a game, I think, too, I don't want to say for Indiana stars, but, when you look at Oladipo and Zeller combined to shoot 17 of 36, or 37, from the floor, they combined for 39 points, 23 rebounds, 5 assists. This was, and those two played 36, Zeller played 36 minutes, and Oladipo played 33 minutes. Those were 1 and 2 in terms of minutes played for Indiana on Sunday. Again, if you're talking about kind of maybe the game Indiana needed to see from itself, It probably needed to involve Cody Zeller being dominant. It probably needed to involve Victor Oladipo kind of finding his stride again. He admitted after the game he didn't play well against Ohio State, and maybe really just generally, like Indiana can say, hasn't been playing that well overall recently. So, it wasn't in a lot of ways a very good day for Indiana, despite the fact that they didn't play great. You don't feel like they just found a way to win. I mean, I think that cheapens the victory. I think they earned it. I think that they were the more physical team. I think they were the more, willing team in terms of getting things mixed up and really kind of attacking at both ends. And, at the end of the night, again, if you want to use some horrid coach speak and talk about winning plays, Indiana made them. Cody Zeller scores the last 6 points of the game, and they're his most important 6 points of the season because it clinches, obviously, an outright title for Indiana. They already had the number 1 seed sewn up in Chicago, and we actually already knew by tip-off that Indiana would be playing the winner of a game Thursday afternoon between Illinois and Minnesota. So Indiana will face, in the quarterfinals of the Big Ten tournament, a team it has lost to this year. But they go into the tournament. They've beaten Ohio State at Ohio State, Michigan State at Michigan State, Michigan at Michigan. They swept both the Michigan teams. I believe that is not something anyone else can say. I could be wrong about that, but I do not believe that anyone else swept both Michigan and Michigan State and won at all 3 of those places. Tough on Michigan that loss sinks them to the number 5 spot in the Big Ten tournament. I mean, that it was just so log jammed there at the top. But in the end, Indiana earns it with another crucial road victory. They finished 14-4 in the Big Ten. They're at 26 wins, which means their next win, assuming there is one, which who knows in this crazy season, their next win will match in that last overall win total of 27 wins. And you definitely get the feeling that Indiana sees goals beyond tonight. I mean, just in the way they talked and the way they acted, and in the way they played. I think a lot of people wondered where Indiana would be mentally for this game after a tough loss at home on senior night on Tuesday to Ohio State, and after hearing a lot of questions about its toughness and its physical level in terms of are they fatigued, are they tired, and that sort of thing. I think I think a day like today maybe sort of refocused everything and probably clinched for them a spot in Indianapolis as the Midwest's number 1 seed, and if nothing else, gave them a pretty good leg up on Michigan State or Michigan, who is the other likely number 1 seed candidate out of the Big Ten, alongside probably Michigan State. If either one of those teams can make a really deep Big Ten tournament run, a really deep run in Chicago next weekend, then maybe they could push for number 1 seed. But when you consider the bad losses on each team's resume, when you consider the fact that Indiana has beaten both of them twice, has beaten them home and away each twice, I think this is probably. Nothing ever sews it up, but you think this is probably what it'll take. You think probably Indiana's there now in terms of being the number 1 seed in the East, or the Midwest. So obviously a big night for IU. We'll have a lot more coverage coming. We've already got a bunch of stuff up on the site, and we'll have a lot more coverage coming in the next few days. And soon enough, we're going to be talking about the Big Ten tournament, and then soon after that, we're going to be talking about the NCAA tournament. So we'll see you in Chicago, maybe we'll see you in Dayton, maybe we'll see you in Lexington, maybe we'll see you in Indianapolis. Who knows? The season is once again an open book for Indiana. For all of us at Inside Indiana, although I'm the only one in this room right now, this is Zach Osterman, and thanks for watching Inside Indiana Overtime.